symmetry and vertex. All right, so like I mentioned on our quick write, an axis of symmetry is the line down the middle of something that chops it in half evenly. So right here we've got two pictures of quadratics. I picked these pictures of quadratics because they have an axis of symmetry shown. So this dotted line right here, this dotted line right here that I just put in blue, those are our axis of symmetry. Today what we are doing is we are finding the axis of symmetry, which is a vertical line that splits the parabola into two equal halves. I should probably mention to you right now, the graph of a quadratic can be described with the word parabola. So a parabola, right here, P-A-R-A-B-O-L-A, a parabola is the shape of a graph of a quadratic. This entire unit, we are only learning about quadratics. So we are going to be finding the axis of symmetry, which is the line that chops a quadratic in half. And then we are also going to be finding the vertex, which is the point at either the very top middle of our graph or the point at the bottom middle of our graph. So our vertex is that bottom middle or that top middle point. Okay. By the end of this unit, actually by the end of next week, we are also going to be able to find our x-intercepts, or we call those our zeros as well, and our y-intercept. And we are eventually going to be able to graph this entire thing. So I'm eventually going to be able to give you a function, and you will be able to put the entire thing on a graph by hand. We cannot do all of those things in one day. So today, all we're doing is the axis of symmetry and the vertex. So first thing that you guys need to know is that all of your graphs will be given to you in what is called standard form, which is ax squared plus bx plus c. We're used to that from factoring last unit. We were used to finding our a, b, and c values. Our axis of symmetry, like we already mentioned, is the vertical line that splits the parabola into two equal halves. So it's that vertical line. Vertical lines are always x equals. So we did Hoy-Bucks last semester. Horizontal lines are y equals. Vertical lines are x equals. Our formula for finding the axis of symmetry is that x always equals negative b over 2a. So that is just a formula that we are going to use. So all we have to do is plug in b and a and do the math. There's nothing crazy. So we are going to go ahead and do that for our first example. So our first example we have here, f of x equals x squared plus 8x plus 7. First thing I'm going to do is identify a, b, and c. There's an imaginary 1 right here in front of x squared. So if x squared is by itself, it's 1x squared. So my a value is 1, my b value is 8, and my c value is 7. So I just got that from there, 1, 8, and 7. Okay, our formula is that x always equals negative b over 2a. So that is a formula that we are just plugging into. So the negative is part of the formula. We plug in the b and the a. So on top, instead of having negative b, we now have negative 8. And then on the bottom, instead of having 2a, we have 2 times 1. So the negative and the 2 are part of the formula. We plug in the b and the a. And then from there, we just do the math. So I'm going to always multiply out the bottom first. That 2 times 1 is 2. So now I've got negative 8 over 2. And then negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 4. So it is a formula. We always just do negative b over 2a. Any questions on that? Okay, so the other part of what we are doing today is finding the rest of the vertex. So our vertex is always going to be on our axis of symmetry because it's always going to be right in the middle. So how we find our vertex is we substitute or just plug in, it's a fancy way of saying just plug in, the x value that we just found, which is our axis of symmetry, into the original equation, and then we just put it in the calculator and solve for y. So what that's going to look like down here is we now know that our x value is -4. So when I'm trying to find my vertex, it's going to be an ordered pair. This is x and y. So I already know my x value. It's -4. And then all I'm doing is plugging in that -4 for x. So I am finding f of -4. I'm plugging in -4 for x, which is going to be 1, instead of times x squared, it's going to be times -4 squared. Anytime I plug something in, I want to put it in parentheses, plus 8 times -4 plus 7. So all I did was I rewrote this equation, but where the x's were, I plugged in a -4. I wrote it in function notation here. You don't have to do that part. From there, we can go ahead and plug in. We can either do this by hand or we can do it in a calculator. Do you have your pass? We can either do it by hand or do it in a calculator. So if we are going to do it by hand, we have to do order of operations. We have to do our exponents first. So I would do -4 squared. -4 times -4 is positive 16. 16 times 1 is 16 still. So I'd have 16. 8 times -4 would be -32. And I still have my plus 7. And then I could work out what this is. 16 minus 32 is -16. Plus 7 is -9 is my y value. So you can do it by hand if you want to. Most people are going to choose to do it in their calculator. If you're going to do it in your calculator, you need to plug this entire row of stuff in. So it's going to be 1 times -4 in parentheses squared plus 8 times -4 plus 7. I get -9. Okay. Any questions about that first example? Okay, we have 2 more on the back. We're going to go through and see some different things that happen when we've got different a values is really what's different. If you currently have a phone out, please put it away. I think after seeing our test scores from Unit 5, hopefully some of us have realized that we need to be putting forth a little bit more effort and asking more questions and paying more attention. So if you currently have a phone out, put it away. Okay, so this next one, we've got 2x squared minus 12x plus 16. So we're going to go through and do our a, b, and c values. What is my a value? What's my a value? 2. Okay, what's my b value? -12. So you got to pay attention. If it's minus, it's negative. If it's plus, it's positive. And my c value is 16. And since it's plus, it's positive. Okay, we are doing that same formula. My formula is x equals -b over 2a. That will always be the formula to find my axis of symmetry, to find my x. Here's the tricky part on this one, though. What is my b value? -12. My formula is -b. So that means I've got a negative from my formula and I have a negative from my 12. So I've got negative, negative 12 right now. I'm going to write that down. We'll deal with it in a second. And on the bottom, I have 2a, which is 2 times 2. What is a negative negative? Positive. So I've got positive 12 over 2 times 2, which is 4. And 12 divided by 4 is 3. So that means my x value is 3, which means the x value of my vertex is also 3. Hey, any questions on that? Hey, so then we are going to plug that 3 in for x to solve for y. So that's going to be 2 times 3 squared minus 12 times 3 plus 16. So once you figure out your x value, all you have to do is plug it in for x to solve for y. You can do it by hand or in your calculator. I'm going to do both. You only have to do one. If you want to do both to check yourself, that would be a good idea. If you're going to do it by hand, you have to do your exponents first. So 3 squared is 9. 2 times 9 is 18. Minus 12 times 3 would be 36. And then plus 16. So then working this out by hand, 18 minus 36 is negative 18. Negative 18 plus 16 is negative 2. Thank goodness for calculators to be able to check ourselves. So in a calculator, I would do 2 times 3 squared minus 12 times 3. Make sure you do minus there, not negative. It's not letting me put in multiple brackets. Plus 16. Let me come look at it. And you should get negative 2. Figure it out. Bye. Hey, any questions on that one? Hey, we have one more problem, and then you guys will have about 45 minutes to work or so, maybe a little bit less, but enough time to get stuff done. 40, yeah, we have 47 minutes left, so by the time we get this problem done, like 45. Okay, so this last problem, as we are going through it, you need to be asking yourself the question, do I know where these things are coming from, and am I going to be able to do this on my own on the next problem I'm expected to do? If you don't know where something's coming from, ask. If you don't want to ask now in front of the entire class, ask when we pass out the assignments once you start working on your own. But it's up to you guys as high school students to ask questions that you have. We cannot read your mind, and we cannot know what you are stuck on unless you communicate it with us. So, this example, we've got negative x squared. Please stop talking. This duo here and this duo here. Please stop talking. Just stop. Okay. Negative x squared plus 2x minus 5. Let's go backwards on this. What's my c value? Negative 5. Yep. What is my b value? 2. What is my a value? Negative 1. So there's a 1 squeezed in right there. My a value is negative 1. That's the tricky part about this one. My a value is negative 1. And we need to not forget that when we go plug it in at the end. Okay, so my formula to find my axis of symmetry is always negative b over 2a. So x equals negative b over 2a. So in this problem, negative b is going to be negative 2 over 2a is going to be 2 times negative 1. 2 times negative 1. On the bottom there is negative 2. So now I've got negative 2 over negative 2. Anything divided by itself is 1. And negative divided by negative is positive. Okay. Please stop. Just be still, be calm, pay attention to this instead of everything else. Okay, any questions about that x value? Okay, then put your phone away. Kamani, grab a note sheet, please. Kamani. Grab a note sheet, please. Okay, so from there, we are now going to plug in 1 for our x value. So we've got negative 1, because I had that negative 1 as my a value, times x squared, which is 1 squared, plus 2 times 1, minus 5. If I were to do this by hand, I would do my exponents first. 1 squared is 1, because 1 times 1 is 1, times negative 1 is negative 1. So because I do my exponent and then my multiplication, it gets multiplied by the negative after. 2 times 1 is 2, and I've got minus 5 here. I've got negative 1 plus 2 minus 5. Negative 1 plus 2 is 1. 1 minus 5 is negative 4. So that's my y value. I already had my x value. It was 1. I just didn't write it down yet. If you wanted to do this in your calculator, you would have to either put that negative 1, or you can just put a negative in front of those parentheses. So I've got negative times 1 squared plus 2 times 1 minus 5. And I get negative 4. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop this video so it can get uploaded for those of us who missed part of notes.